Welcome back, everyone. This is Lafayette Faust. Thank you for coming back for the third and final part of my interview with James Joseph Jones, the author of the amazing series of books that begin with The Blessing of the Damned and continues with The Pale and the Opaque, Book 1 of the Weston Chronicles. In this part of the interview, James and I discuss using background music while writing and what makes a great story and how to hook the reader or listener and keep them coming back for more. James also shares a personal paranormal story that I think you'll find interesting. So, if you love your horror with a gothic vibe, just make sure that you give James a listen. Download his books, buy his books. There'll be links in the description below. And we appreciate you for coming back and listening to this final part of the interview. So with that, I invite you to sit back, turn on a light, and prepare yourself. So when you write, do you like any type of background music?
If I do, I can only listen to classical music. If it is music with words, I can either only focus on the words of the song or on my own writing. So it just becomes an exercise in schizophrenia. I can't.
That is that's the name of my next rock band, dude. An exercise in schizophrenia. I love that. As a musician, I'm like, yes, I'm starting a punk band called Exercise in Schizophrenia.
I won't give you any copyright arguments or trouble over it. You have at it.
So let me ask you, do you sing? I need a singer.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Okay, well, for punk, if you can just get close, it'll be a
I
punk
sound good
band.
in the shower to myself, but I'm being pretty generous.
So I think I saw an interview one time with Stephen King, and he said that he likes loud rock music like AC/DC classics and stuff in the background while he's writing. There's no way I could do it either.
Wow.
If it had, while I may love the music, there's no way I could have that kind of music on in the background.
No, like King, I love the Ramones. They are one of my very favorite bands. So I love AC/DC. I can see why he likes that music, but I cannot figure out how he can write because I love it so much, I'm just going to focus on it.
Right.
My stuff is secondary compared to listening to those guys.
What do you think? This is one of the last few questions we'll get to is, what do you think makes a great story?
The classic hook. I think I'll give a writer a chapter to pull me in. The ones who can do it in the first paragraph, let alone the masters who can do it in the first sentence, really have a talent. I think you've got to immediately kind of slap the reader in the face, say, hey, pay attention to me, and really give them something to go after, and you write that book that's hard to put down.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I've always been, I love to read the first sentence of a book, and even if it's not a good sentence, I'm in because I get it. I've started reading books before where I'm like, man, it's starting slow, but ended up loving the book. But I only give it so much. At some point, fairly soon, you have to catch me. One of the things I struggle with as a writer is I would write these stories, and I want to write in long form. But, I've ended up on a platform where I have to write short form. Well, the good thing of that is it's helped me create this universe of Nevermore Hollows. But, it makes me, I feel it makes me be more creative. But one of the things I struggle with is on my podcast, the people will come, no matter what I name that story, they're there. So I get the sense that a lot of the folks that listen to the podcast are readers. And they're like for example, there was this, my only vampire story was called Sparkletown. And it was a derogatory term about this this cult that lived in Nevermore Hollows, where they had the movie star vampire thing. They would sprinkle themselves with, it was a sex cult, right? But they would sprinkle themselves with this. They pretend to be vampires, and they were wearing glitter, and then the real vampires show up. But the folks in town derogatorily called that cult Sparkle Town. As a podcast, that was awesome. It's still one of my most downloaded and listened to every day. It gets great downloads every day. It's very consistent. But when I moved and started trying to grow YouTube, I feel that a lot of the folks on YouTube maybe aren't as deep into reading and more. I know it sounds weird because you think, well, a podcast is listening and YouTube is listening, but for whatever reason, Sparkletown got nothing. Like it's been up for like a year, and it's only got like 36 listens on there.
I'm intrigued now just because it's a vampire story.
Right. So what I had to do is I had to go out there and go, okay, what are the big guys? Because my channel's still really small on YouTube. And I had to go, well, what's the competition doing? Well, there is nobody doing exactly what I'm doing on YouTube. They're readers. So they take stories and they will read these stories. And there's some great narrators out there, but nobody has sat down and said, I'm a writer who's going to write this universe and record this universe and build it the way I want it. Nobody's doing that. But what I did is I started looking at what are they naming their episodes. So instead of being clever, like when you get into my stories, you go, oh, I see why you call this Sparkletown now.
Right, but if I see Sparkletown, I'm going to think maybe about some teenage high school queens who are running the school or whatever.
Right.
Or something along that lines. It is deceptive.
It is.
It wouldn't turn me away if I had been told about it.
Right. So what I ended up having to do is I had to start renaming these stories on YouTube.
And...
well, I started getting more downloads. I started getting more people coming to the site. I've been fortunate enough to this month alone. I've had the most subscribers that I've ever had in a 30-day period.
Wow.
I'm still teeny tiny on YouTube. But what frustrates me is it's almost like some of the people that come to listen to YouTube, which I'm thankful for everybody that comes, is they're coming for something different.
Mm-hmm.
And they all may be readers, but they've become accustomed to that. I'm a reader, and I want you to hit me right out. I want you to hit me right in the face with what this is about, which is valid. It's very valid. So I've started doing that because you got to kind of give
hook them in.
You got to kind of give them what they want. So I realized that the people on YouTube are looking for something a little different in the hook,
mm-hmm.
right? So the thumbnail is important and how you name it. So you'll see, like on my podcast, it'll be Sparkletown, but on YouTube it's something totally different because I'm going with that look that they're looking for. Okay. They're literally judging the book by the cover, and that's okay. Is whatever Like I said, I've got some folks that are listening to me now. They're very nice. They're commenting a lot. They're starting to help me grow the channel by putting it out there, and I'm thankful for that. But I had to learn YouTube is a different beast.
Okay.
But anyway, so I'm way off track there. But
editing will help you.
Yeah. So right. So what I was getting at is, to the point of the discussion there was what makes a great story. So sometimes you literally have to give them a great cover or a great name for the story to so that they'll be willing to give you a shot.
And I've read stories where maybe they did start off strong and then it just starts meandering and I can't stay with the story. So it's not just about getting that initial hook. You got to maintain the interest. Now, something I did recently, I narrated my first steamy romance novel by my niece, Haley True. Her first book is Bottom of the Ninth, and she works at a local university as a sports trainer.
Okay.
And so she knows sports in and out. She played basketball for a couple of colleges, and so she knows sports. And then I didn't know this, but she reads a lot of steamy romances. That apparently that's a big thing right now. I don't know because it's not something I normally read. So I didn't really know what to expect. It was the first book that I'd read that was written in first person. The two protagonists, each will get a chapter back and forth. They're showing their points of view about a particular subject.
So one chapter is in her perspective, or and then, very
so
good.
it'll, it goes back and forth. But I was reading some of her reviews, and here's the deal. I didn't know what to expect. But when she hooked me immediately, and there was a strong story. There was tension. The tension stayed there. There were surprises, red herrings, and all that. So it hooked me, and it kept me my interest to the end of it. Yes, I was editing it, but I was also enjoying reading it.
Yeah.
But I remember one of the comments was by, I don't know if it was a friend, a colleague, but I was reading reviews and comments and all that, and this woman said, other than school, I've maybe read 2 books before in my life, and this is now my 3rd, and I loved it. She just got a non-reader to read.
That's awesome.
So
yeah.
I think that is something that we as a culture are really, I won't say in danger of losing, but we're below the international bar as far as I'm concerned with our literacy. And I wish more people would read. My old rule in high school, if I had to do a book report, I'd go through the library, or in the fiction section or whatever I had to write about, and I would just, if it was a novel, if it had more than 200 pages, right back on the shelf. I had to make sure, because I read at about the speed at which I speak.
Yeah.
And I'm a person who wants to absorb every article besides the nouns and verbs. I know some people just kind of skim read, they cliff note read.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy writing if it's well done, and I want to soak up every word.
I'm that way too. I'll go back and I'll sometimes just go to my son or my wife and I'll go, let me just read you this passage right here. It is so well done.
Wow. Yeah, that's you've found a successful author when you find something like that. And I just thought, wow, I wonder if any time, whether I'm still alive or long after I'm gone, if there's somebody that somehow finds one of my books and reads it and says, whoa, that was fun, let's do it again.
Yes.
Let's find another one of his, and let's find some more in this genre, and let's explore other genres. I think reading works a different part of your brain. I mean, I like watching movies on TV just as much as anybody else, but it's not the same process. You don't see the same pictures. The same parts, or not all the same parts of your brain are working. I'm not trying to be a snob or anything. I don't care if it's a comic book or a magazine. I just think we as a culture should be doing more reading and exercising that part of our brains more.
Agree.
And I think it makes us less susceptible to fake news, propaganda, garbage, and more likely to get our news by comparing different sources, reading different sources, hearing different sources, talking to different people, not just those who agree with us. We all feel comfortable in our group. Right now, you and I have horror in common. We have writing in common, that kind of art in common, music. We may be polar opposites in other areas, but at the end of the day, we can just come back and say, well, you know what?
Right.
We both eat, sleep, and perform bodily functions,
Right.
and we both love writing and reading and horror.
Because, you and I have never had a political or theological conversation, but you and my son have had very deep political and theological conversations, and he has told me about some of those. So I can tell you right now, there's a lot of places that you and I would not align. But man, I have so enjoyed this conversation with you today.
I have too.
And, I still talk, even though I don't get to see you as often as I would love, I still talk about last year in your garden.
Yeah, it's a nice memory, sitting out there sipping absinthe in the shade.
Yes.
And your son, Mr. Overlord, my wife says he's an old soul. Yeah. I look at him and I guess now he's, 22?
22, yeah.
He will be.
Yeah.
Will be.
No, he's going to be 23.
23, that's right.
Jeez. I mean,
I'll tell you how, this is a weird thing, how I met this guy. And it's similar to how I met the young woman who did the artwork for my first 2 books.
Mm-hmm. Which is really good.
It's incredible. MS Schuford, she's a brilliant young artist and also a writer and book reviewer. I worked with her in a manufacturing job, and I'd see her, and I just kind of kept... One day I just walked right up to her and said, "You're an artist, aren't you?" And she just went, "Yeah, why?" And I said, "We smell our own kind." And we started a conversation, told her about what I was doing and if she'd be interested in doing some artwork, and it clicked. Even more oddly, I had lost my flash stick to keep my books on it. I would carry it in my pocket to work everywhere I went. So if anything happened to my computer, which is here, I had it backed up. Right. I was paranoid about losing my work. Well, I had pulled something out of my pocket, a rubber glove or something, and it stuck to it, and I thought I'd lost it. It ended up going under one of the machines. Somebody found it and gave it back to me the next day. But when I got off work, I was in a panic, and I'd gone to the doctor down on Georgetown Road, and I was turning up to Paul Huff.
Right.
I was like, I need to go to Walgreens, get another flash stick. I'll go to the ones over there on Stewart, and I'm like, well, there's one right here, and I was like, no, fuck it. I don't want to have to turn left out of there when I get,
because that's crazy.
The next thing I know, it was just free of traffic, and I shot across there. I followed the law pretty closely, but I was like, why did I just turn in here, man? That was stupid. I walk in, I go to the counter, and I see this young man, and I said, hey, he goes, how can I help you? And I said, well, this is what happened, so I need a flash stick. He said, well, what kind? I said, oh. Yeah. I said, well, he said, what are you doing with it? And I said, well, I'm writing. I need something that can hold enough for several novels. He goes, okay, then. And we started talking. He says, well, I do this comic book, and we clicked. Yeah. And we started meeting, but I always remember it was almost like somebody grabbed the wheel from my hands and yanked me into that parking lot. Yeah. And I'm glad whatever did it.
Well, you've had over the years since that happened, you've had a great relationship with my son. Y'all meet awesome regularly. Y'all have coffee. You share a beer once he got old enough to have a beer. And he would come home so energized from those conversations, and he would tell me about you because you got to meet this guy, Dad. But I'll tell you this, like you say, whatever got you there, you and I are going to disagree on what got you there, because I am a believer that God controls the universe and makes all things happen.
And I'm not a denier of that. So
right.
There's some greater power. I will agree with you on that.
Right. So you may be a little bit more metaphysical, where I'm a little bit more, but that's cool. But either way, what are the odds that you were freaking out because you thought that you had lost your work, and you end up in front of my son, who's the son of a man who's a writer, right? Crazy. And I don't believe in coincidences.
It was nuts, and it's one of those moments in your life that you can replay just as vividly as though it were happening.
Right.
And it leaves an imprint. Ethan, and he's an amazing young man. With the music and everything, we were talking music, and I finally got to hear him sing and hear some of the band's music, which I was impressed by. I'm not. Thrash isn't my main thing, but I don't care if it's well done. I'm like, oh, these guys are pretty freaking awesome. And I introduced him to a band I used to hang out with. I was like a groupie at first. I overheard them in Knoxville while talking to some other musicians outside this bar, and I went up and talked to the drummer. The next time I talked to the bassist. I was going to every show. They became friends. I was hanging out with them. And their music, they're one of those bands that someone once said that, the Beatles are great, but if you'd been in the Mersey scene, Liverpool and all that back in the day, there were a dozen bands that were just as good, probably better. It's a matter of, I don't know whether I believe that or not. The Beatles are so incredible, but at the same time, hearing this band and then knowing other local and national, international bands that have been signed, whether I like this band or not, I'm breaking down intellectually the music, the writing.
That's what I do.
And I'm like, how did they not get a contract? But Ethan seemed to like their music, and I was like, check them out. And I was going down memory lane with him while he was like pulling stuff up on Spotify or YouTube or whatever. But it's.
So and to dovetail off of that, I'm the same way. So for the listeners, my son, when James and he met, it's 4 years ago now, maybe? Has it been that long? 5?
He was 18.
Yeah. So since then, my son has he's a comic book artist, and he sells books on Amazon. Plus, he's in local comic book stores, and three comic book stores locally and growing. And so he's a musician. He's a singer and guitar player in a band. And what I am thankful for you is how you've poured into that creatively. Because I'm his dad. And we bounce stuff off.
It's awesome, son. It's great. It's the best stuff I've ever heard.
But he and I, we've always bounced stuff off of each other, and we've always tried to be honest with each other. And there are times I'll bounce a story idea off him, and he'll go, "That it kind of sucks,"
Yeah, and Stephen King's children and wife are the same way.
Right, and I value that honesty. You're not going to hurt my feelings.
That's the way I tell him, and I said, "Look, this is a labor of love, but it's also a business. I'm not going to get anywhere if I just get defensive and say, you just don't understand."
That's right.
I want to continually improve, and I need to know the truth. Right. Only the truth is going to help me improve in the areas that I don't see the weaknesses.
That's right. And I've always told him, I said, when he was little and he wanted to first start learning how to draw and wanted to start learning music, I was like, son, I'm going to be honest with you because I don't want you to embarrass yourself. And it was so awesome that first time that we went into the comic book store and we had some comic books, and we said, hey, we'd like to start. We want to know if you want to sell these comic books. And they took a look and they said, heck yeah, we want to sell your comic books.
That's great.
But where I was going with that thought there, you have poured into that too. You've helped edit his comic books. You've been honest with him and helped him in his growth. So I very much appreciate that. And I look forward to, now that as our relationship is growing, to bounce ideas off of you. Hey James, what do you think about this? Would you read this scene? Let me know what you think. And you're not going to hurt my feelings at all. Because like you, I want to be better. So let me ask you 3 more quick questions. Okay. So, when you're writing women, we're in a culture now to where I don't care. I'll write what I'm going to write and be as honest as I can be. That doesn't mean I won't pick a woman's brain, my wife or nieces or sisters-in-law or whatever. But do you have any issues? Do you have any problems writing from a woman's perspective?
I don't really think so. I mean, I grew up with a sister a year younger, my mother, until we were old enough where she went to work. So we had a lot of that bonding time when I was a child, and I've dated a lot, before I got my act together. So I feel comfortable with female bosses. I like being around women. Sure, there are those A types or the power-driven types, but for the most part, there's not an alpha competition or a piss contest. They're out there, but right. I'm just. Plus, I just like being around women. I mean, that's just me. I just put myself in their places. I try to mentally, and also I think mentally, I've got a pretty strong feminine and feminist side to me. I'm comfortable with my own heterosexuality. But I guess that's the sensitive artist part of it. Right. Colleague James has talked to me that he's interviewed women on different subjects to pick their brains, and I've asked questions about certain things before, but not writing a story. I got to go talk to some women about this. No, right. No, I haven't.
Yeah, what I do is I just write the story, but now every once in a while I'll go, okay, I really do need a woman's perspective on this. Not to have affirmation, just to go, if I say this...
Would a woman really do this or think this?
Exactly, yeah. And there's been a couple of times that my sister is brutal. She is absolutely brutal. And for those of you who are listening, Alyssa Hart, the Nevermore Hollows coroner and medical examiner, is based loosely off of my sister. But my sister, every now and then, she will call me up and she'll go, what the heck did you just write? She goes, that is terrible. Nobody would ever say that in a million years. Or Alan, what? Except
you.
Right. And sometimes she'll go, really? Like, there's a story getting ready to come out where, again, I'll tell you this, and then I'll ask the final question. One of the things I love to do is I like to try to challenge myself as a writer. I go, can I make this thing that's silly, can I make it scary? Or if I can't make it scary, by the time you're at the end of that story, do you go, you know, like you know, the first story you listened to was one where the clown comes in and he's got the monkey, you know, and the monkey starts shooting up a Waffle House. Okay, that is the quirkiness that's in my head.
That's a creepy monkey, very creepy monkey.
Yeah, that's the weird stuff that's in my head. But the challenge is, when it's done, can somebody come to me and go, you know what, that was out there, but dude, I got something from it, you know? And I'll tell you what, there are now 84 episodes that I have written and put out, okay? 84 episodes, right? That is by far, double anything else. That is the most listened to episode. That's the one that everybody's sharing. Is the first one.
So it's basically like, I've had friends that have used crack. They say, you know, you're chasing the dragon after that. You're never going to get that initial high again.
Yeah.
Is that what you're telling me?
Right. So it's the weirdness, but that's the challenge. So all these other stories that are doing well but not doing that well, I go, what did I capture in that one that I've not been able to capture in this one? But the challenge was, all right, it's out there, but can I make this something that people are going to resonate with to some degree? So anyway, that we're way off the subject there. But anyway, that's what I love to do. Is I love to challenge myself as a writer. So final question: do you have a favorite drink while writing?
Yes. Non-chilled water with fresh lemon juice squeezed in it, black coffee, and red wine.
Yeah. It's funny you should say that. I don't drink a lot of water, but I will either drink a loaded tea, you know, one of those with all the B vitamins and caffeine in it to get the caffeine punch. Mostly some sort of coffee, but if I am writing in the evenings, it's always wine.
I drink them all together. I mean, the water's for the hydration, the caffeine's for the energy, and the alcohol is to loosen the gears a little bit, get things flowing. So those three, they're not separate, or they're not like at different times. They're always, you know, usually together.
Well, I can tell you, probably tonight when I get home, because I'm jazzed right now, and I'm literally gonna leave your house. I'm gonna go sit down with my computer and write.
I'm probably gonna do the same.
But I'm definitely gonna have to have a bee sting, because this is now my new favorite drink.
Awesome.
It's amazing.
I'm out of mead. I have to get some more mead. But yeah, you just need. I'll show you the Baron Jaeger bottle. And
well, I will be. There's a liquor store on the way home. I'm stopping.
They'll have it.
All right. So again, James Joseph Jones.
You don't call me Jim Jones.
Oh, so good thing you don't drink Kool-Aid when you write at night, right?
Did I ever tell you the joke about the Jonestown Massacre?
No.
Well, I would, but the punchline's too long.
Oh.
Oh.
That's an old school joke there, too.
That's bad.
All right, so I will have a link in the show notes for your books, and I would encourage everybody to check out your writing. And obviously, you're an interesting man, and that's going to, you know, that plays out in your writing. So
in my own mind, I am.
So, but you are this has been a great conversation. Thank you for being here.
I want to add a few things before you go. We're not finished yet.
All right.
So just very quickly. First of all, I'm really flattered that Ethan was giving that kind of positive feedback after meeting with me, because I thought, man, I just ramble. But I've told him, I said, look, man, I work, and especially in those periods of overtime, and I come home, my wife's working opposite schedule. You're the only person sometimes I might talk to in a week, and then really, I mean, outside work and stuff.
Right.
So I said I have, you know, verbal vomit when I'm around you, so thanks for listening. Something else, I want to throw in a quick horror story, a real one, just really quickly. I read several books on the Bell Witch, and I finally found a book that the writer says you can confirm this with University of Mississippi. They have this original copy. A descendant of the Bell family found this, wrapped in oilcloth manuscript in an attic in Alabama, submitted it to the University of Mississippi. It was authenticated as having been John Bell's diary. He married the young woman who was tormented by the Bell Witch.
Right.
So this book is basically just a reprint of his story.
Right.
His true story. while I was reading this, one of my old apartments, it's late at night, dark as pitch. I remember, but it was cool enough. I had the windows open, so there's the screen. I'm deep into this book, and something, it just sounded like claws hitting the screen and raking down them. And it did it a couple of times. I thought, okay, all right, there are little moths and whatever out there, and I've seen big moths, bigger than bats. But what the hell's making that sound? Creeped me out. Never did figure it out.
Right.
I don't remember whether I looked or not. I didn't want to know. Gave the book to a friend of mine, and she's reading it late one night. Sitting on the couch, only a light on, nothing else is on. The TV comes on, and it's just static. And I said, well, maybe you rolled over on the remote or something. She goes, no, the remote was on the coffee table 3 or 4 feet away. It creeped me out, and I thought maybe power surge or something. So I turn it off, I sit back down with the book, open it up, start reading, and it does it again.
Oh, no.
It does it 3 times, and finally I'm like, she said, screw it, I'm going to bed. Gave the book to my mom and then my sister, and finally the weird stuff stopped happening. But with us two, yeah, it was creepy.
Wow. So that obviously opens up this question, begs the question. You believe in a supernatural realm?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, there's just people that I've spoken with. I had possibly a brush with what may have been a spirit, but the nail in the coffin, my confirmation came years later. I didn't put this together until I started writing earlier books. I'd done a few books that were not in this vampire series, but I did one called Of Myth and Legend, my own stories, and at the end of it there are 2 true hauntings. And just based on evidence of residents of this rental house over the years, none of them knew each other. They had told me the same story of things that happened in this house, and they can't have known each other. They can't have come up with the exact same spirit description. So there's something out there, and so good and bad and in between. I don't think I'm ever going to know it. Any of us ever going to know it until maybe we cross over into other dimension and get all the answers.
Right.
Hopefully.
Fascinating story. So, I am obviously I believe in a spirit realm, and that it interacts with us, and if you are open to it, you're going to see it. I think there's a lot of people who shrug it off because they're not. This is going to sound very new agey, and I don't mean it in this way at all. They're just not attuned to it. They're not open to what's going on. They're not discerning that, hey, what's going on around me? There's something spiritual happening. And I am surrounded by like-minded people who are sober-minded men and women. Okay? These are intelligent, learned, well-read, educated people, and they have some terrifying stories.
One of my dearest friends, CJ, the author Collie James, he's very sensitive to psychic activity. I just edited a book for Johnny Odom. She discovered this gift as a child, didn't really pick it up again until she was 30. It just kind of blocked it out. When CJ he was going to go to Gettysburg with a girlfriend a few years ago, see the battlefield, see the town, and I joked with him, and I said, take some pictures, man. It's supposed to be the most haunted town in America. And he's like, yeah, okay. Well, he comes back, and he says, man, you're not going to believe this. I remember what you told me, but it really happened. I said, well, what happened? And he said, well, I forget the name of the young woman. She was the only known civilian to have been killed in the Battle of Gettysburg, making bread at her house in the middle battlefield, at her window. Stray bullet kills her. Well, he and his girlfriend toured this house, and he takes a picture of a fox and hound scene that's hanging on a wall. And juxtaposed over the lower left portion of this large painting looked like a black and white photograph of a beautiful Victorian woman with her black ringlets, relaxed on an ottoman with a little furry lapdog in her lap, and the image kind of trails off. It's misty around the corners, and it tapers off to the lower southwest, almost like you'd be reading a comic book and it's a conversation bubble or a thought bubble. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, maybe there was a picture behind you and a reflection hit that and caused this weird. He said, we looked around the whole room. There was nothing else. That was the only picture in the room.
Wow. And
I asked him, I saw it, and he showed me, and I asked him a few years later, I said, dude, did you ever print that? He's like, no, my phone, it got broken and everything was lost on it. I was like, oh, God, it it was an amazing capture of a spirit.
Right. Oh yeah. Look,
Very peaceful, though. I mean, she was very pretty, very relaxed. Did not look to be in any anguish. Just looked like she was still like posing for a photographer.
Interesting. And see, that's the thing. I think there are times that we capture those things, on camera, and or sometimes you can audio, you can catch things, but people are, and it's easy nowadays to fake that stuff, but I think we write a lot of it off too quickly.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah. Fascinating. Well, look, what you just told me, that's going to be its own little separate thing, because I've also been doing this thing where it's True Tales from Nevermore Hollows, where I've been speaking to people about their own paranormal experiences. So we're going to chop that out and make its own little
I got plenty more
episode.
yarns for later, so
excellent.
I'll have to do
Well,
it again.
That's something I want to do then. The next time that we're together, we're gonna talk about our own paranormal experiences.
I don't have many, but I have many friends who have seen very, very strange things and had very strange things happen.
Yeah,
to them.
and I would even, we can talk about them secondhand, or if have them over sometime and let's talk about it if they're close.
Yeah.
So excellent. Well, James, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and folks, this is Lafayette Faust, and thank you for listening, and we will see you on the next episode.